There's no such thing as sight reading. And this one is for the jazz students. Jazz is an articulation style. And you could probably take any melody from any musical genre and make it sound like jazz just by changing the articulation style. And the great jazz players, the ones we all listen to and try to emulate, most of those guys learned to play this style because they were super talented and they listened to other jazz players and were able to imitate and were really good at translating sounds they hear in their head to their instrument. Well, I'm not particularly like that. So I had to figure out how to do it by listening to the people who already could. And so one of the first things that I noticed when I began emulating these great jazz players is that their style is not just based on when they articulate or the way they alter the eighth note rhythm. But one of the first things I heard is that the articulated notes are louder. And the unarticulated notes are quieter. And I'm using articulate instead of tongue. Wind players are going to think of it as tonguing and slurring. Right? And they always tell you tongue the upbeat, slur the downbeat. And we'll talk about that more later. That's not accurate. But the same articulation applies to guitar and bass and piano and, so I'm going to use articulate. The articulated notes are louder and the unarticulated notes are quieter. And so I started thinking, well, what is it I do that makes the note louder or quieter? It's not really when I tongue, when I articulate, and when I don't. Those things are created on a wind instrument with my air, right? And so what I teach my students to do is to dart their air on the tongue notes, dart their air on the articulated notes, and then the unarticulated notes are quieter. On the guitar or the piano, this would be achieved with the muscles in your hand. So you're still making the same notes louder, the same notes quieter. You're just doing it in a different way. And so the reason that I needed to know which notes to articulate and which notes not to articulate is so I know which notes should be louder and which notes should be quieter. And if you listen to your favorite jazz players, you're going to hear those. If you're listening to wind players, you're going to hear that air dart every time they articulate. You're going to hear, if you're listening to piano players and guitar players, that there's this loud, soft going on. And so the reason that you have to know which notes are the tongue notes, the articulate, and which notes are not, is so you know which notes are louder and which notes are quieter. Now, in regard to swing feel, if you are playing some notes louder than others and some notes quieter than others, so on a wind instrument, some notes you'd be using more and faster air than others. On a string and piano, you'd be using more tension in your muscles on some than others. Then what's going to happen is some notes are going to respond more quickly than others. Some notes are going to have some hesitation because of this change in airspeed and tension, and that's going to present itself as a rhythmic concept. It's going to sound like you've changed the rhythm. And if you're at a slower speed, because you have time to do more air dart or more hand tension, right? It's going to have more of an effect on the rhythm at the slow tempos. And then as you speed up, right, those accents are going to remain in place, but they'll become lighter and lighter because you have less time. And this is why when you're playing swing, that you have this this effect that the swing rhythm straightens, right? I mean, you get up above 160, you're just playing straight eighths, but it's still going to sound swung because those accents are still in place. They're just lighter at that point. So if the accents are in place and you're listening to the rhythm section and trying to lock in with the rhythm section, then what will happen is your accents will subconsciously change based on the tempo to lock in with the rhythm section. You'll have the perfect amount of accent for the perfect amount of tempo. So the reason you need to know which notes to articulate and which notes not is so you know which notes to accent and which notes to not accent. And once those accents are in place, if you just listen to the rhythm section, the swing rhythm will take care of itself. So the reason you have to know which notes are articulated and which notes are not is so you know when to place those accents. And there's a system for that that we'll talk about in a future video. My name's Mark Dooley. I've been a private music teacher for 37 years, focused on practical theory of music literacy. If you'd like to hear more, follow me. If you'd like lessons, contact me. If you can learn how to read words, you can learn how to read music.